Not me, so, and you.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, we just had to come up to witness it, like.
Great, yeah.
It's made me feel very emotional, but it was nice to see her come home and to say my final goodbye. And she'll be with Philip soon, won't she? So they'll be together.
Earlier in the day, a different mood prevailed, of anticipation and even festivity. Some had evidently been here for hours, but young and not so young were all here to say farewell. The Peabody family from Northamptonshire were passing the time and wouldn't have been anywhere else.
We wouldn't have missed it for the world. I mean, the Queen has done so much for Great Britain and the world, and we just needed to be here and ensure that we could pay our respects to her, as probably half of the UK and half of the world will be doing today. So just a tremendous honour to be here.
Headmistress Rhian Thornton camped out overnight, even though she didn't have far to come.
I live in Windsor and I work at the school Upton just over there. So we've got a little group of Upton families here all here together. We used to wave to the Queen on her way to Royal Ascot as a school, so I wanted to just come and wave one last time for myself.
Many others came from far afield.
We got here at 10 o'clock last night, so we've been here all night.
Hadiel Miller and family travelled all the way from Yorkshire.
It's great how we all come together as a nation.
Something bonding.
I think we're all in quite high spirits today, but at the moment, but the mood will definitely change later.
And it did. Solemnity and tears, and then the 2-minute silence. As the procession with the hearse went past, applause rippled up the long walk, with people showing their appreciation in the simplest way. It was quiet, but there was deep emotion too.
It's wonderful to be here with so many people of from all over the country, and to pay our final respects to the Queen, her final long walk.
So many reasons to be here. Community, commemoration, and straightforward affection. A day that no one here will ever forget. Rita Chakrabarti, BBC News, Windsor.
Well, as we've heard, the service in Westminster Abbey was attended by more than 2,000 people, which included heads of state from around the world, as well as foreign royalty. Aside from the security challenges, the day also brought some diplomatic sensitivities. Our diplomatic correspondent, James Landale, looks at the day world leaders descended on London to pay their respects.
As the King's car passed by the many Commonwealth flags en route to the Abbey, it was clear that this funeral transcended national borders. She was, one biographer wrote, Queen of the World, and today's symbols and service bore witness to that truth. Political leaders may have flown from all corners of the world, but their last journey was by bus. Rarely can so many African leaders have shared an outing quite like this. But there were too many of them to come by car, so they came together and queued together. In they came, some 500 foreign dignitaries in all, including about 100 heads of state and government. From North America, the President of the United States, Joe Biden, and his wife, they didn't take the bus. And Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, who did. He first met the Queen when he was just a boy. From Europe came President Macron, who's spoken so warmly of French affection for the Queen, and kings and queens from across the continent, from Spain to Sweden, Norway to the Netherlands. There were leaders too from the other side of the world, from New Zealand and Australia and many of the Pacific Isles. From Africa, a long line of statesmen and women, especially from the Commonwealth, the international organisation the Queen shaped and nurtured. And it was on the Commonwealth that so many prayers dwelt.
With gratitude, we remember her unswerving commitment to a high calling over so many years. as Queen and head of the Commonwealth.
Let us give thanks for Queen Elizabeth's commitment to the Commonwealth throughout her reign.
Then, as the service ended, it was time for the foreign guests to get back to their queues and their buses. And yes, that is the King and Queen of Spain, waiting in line like the rest. Meanwhile, the Queen's coffin processed up the Mall, escorted by Mounties from a country she liked to call home, and an array of servicemen and women from across the Commonwealth, a body to which she had devoted her life, and which today, in return, honoured her memory. James Landell, BBC News.
The Queen died on the 8th of September in Balmoral, and since succeeding to the throne, King Charles has taken part in services of remembrance in all the nations of the country. In a moment, we'll hear from our correspondent Howell Griffith in Wales and Emma Vardy in Northern Ireland. But first, our Scotland editor James Cook on the events held today in honour of the Queen across the UK.
400 miles north of London, a lone lament for Elizabeth. The Royal Yacht Britannia is long retired, but its crew will never forget serving their Queen.
It's a sad moment and it's a sad day today because you'll never ever get the likes of Her Majesty the Queen again. She was one off. She was loved throughout the world. She was a monarch, she was a sovereign, and she was a mother. And in a way, she was our mother on air.
She was respected here too, outside her Edinburgh home, the Palace of Holyrood House, at the foot of the Royal Mile.
Last week, this ancient thoroughfare, where history seeps from every stone, was packed as the Queen lay in rest here at St Giles Cathedral. Today, with the funeral underway in London, it is quieter, but by no means silent.
On Royal Deeside, though, where the Queen spent her final hours, the funeral was a private affair, observed away from the cameras. But not everywhere was closed. Back in Edinburgh, the Crichtons, visiting from New Zealand, found a pub which was showing the ceremony.
The Queen and the royal family, despite being many, many thousands of miles away, we followed them and we felt that they were still part of our lives.
And yet, closer to home, a very different view.
Is the monarchy important to you in your life?
No, they're symbols, but I don't see how they impact my life at all. There's no use for it for us. All it is road closures at the end of the day.
And I get obviously the Queen's been doing it, she was doing it for over 7 years, which is amazing. She didn't choose that life, and that's something that we do sympathise with a little bit. But yeah, no, it's not our. Don't think we need it anymore.
That debate will continue under Charles, with Elizabeth now anchored in history. James Cook, BBC News, Edinburgh.
A faithful few feeling part of something much greater. At St Elvan's Church in Aberdare, they came to share their grief and show their reverence.
It was very emotional, and I think we all cried. I think it was first when she came out and they put her coffin on the carriage. That's the bit that got me.
For Sarah, there was a personal connection too.
The Queen did so much for the people, and I just wanted to be with the people. Have brought me a lot of comfort since my mother passed away in 2020, so that's pretty much why I came. It's like losing your grandmother, isn't it?
Who has taught us by his holy apostle St Paul.
From the theatre in Colwyn Bay to care homes up and down Wales, small groups gathered, finding comfort in company. In Caernarfon, a few veterans paid their own silent tribute.
Unlike other parts of the UK, there were no ceremonial events in Wales today to mark the funeral.